Hey everyone, how's it going today? And welcome back to another third stimulus check unemployment benefits extension update. So today's update is I really want to talk about this recent article that some people kind of had questions about that wanted me to clarify, but it's really about the fact that there are basically 33 states that might be experiencing their unemployment benefits ending actually earlier than their September 2021 original extension. Now, I think it's really important to clarify is that this does not mean that there are 33 states that will be ending their program in its entirety. What this really means is that there are select people within these 33 states that may be experiencing some kind of end to their unemployment relatively earlier than they had anticipated. Now, there is a little bit of a remedy around that. Some people were kind of confused, so I really just want to clarify everything in today's video. If you are either someone that maybe is actually either already going through delays right now, or maybe you're actually thankfully safe, but you're simply afraid to potentially have to run through some kind of delays, or if you're just curious, because some people were kind of wondering really just for the sake of protection, to feel a lot more secure about it. So we're just going to roll right into the spot, but as always, maybe before we begin, remember to smash the like button because it always just helps to support this channel. Consider subscribing for similar videos like this and also other kinds of updates and videos related to finance, unemployment, and stimulus checks. And as always, feel free to comment any questions, thoughts about honestly just really anything at all. It's always great to say hi to new and familiar faces. So with that being said, let's get this video started. So when it comes to the world of unemployment, some people may or may not know this, but just a huge refresher because it is related to what we're about to talk about. But the world of unemployment, there are really two specific paths for unemployment. The first path is if you happen to be someone that's on the traditional unemployment. If you happen to be on the path of the traditional UI, then your typical progression, specifically about the programs that you would move on for each extension, is that you would start on the regular traditional UI. So this is just the unemployment that has been around for years and years. You would then move on to the PUC when you run out, which is the recent extension that was approved inside of the first, second, and the third stimulus package. And then if that ends up expiring, then you would get moved onto the FedEd/the EB program. And also, if you happen to be on the FedEd/EB program, it's also possible that when you run through that, because now that they extended the PUC, you may be able to get back onto the PUC and then continue as usual. The second path of unemployment is really if you happen to be someone that's now on PUA unemployment. So PUA unemployment is their own kind of second separate path that they basically follow. So when it comes to all of the unemployment programs, the 33 states that may potentially have some people, again, keep in mind, it's not that 33 states will be ending, it's that select people within 33 states may experience some kind of early ending. The reasoning really for it is that within all of these unemployment programs, the one of the big ones is pretty much the FedEd/the EB. But as we kind of talked about in one of our old videos, and I'll put that video at the very end screen as well if you guys need a refresher, but it basically talks a lot about how the FedEd/the EB program works. The fact that that program is really specific to every single state. So it varies across different states. I'll put the video at the very end, which really explains about how the FedEd/EB works. Everything in that video has pretty much stayed the same except the date, because that video is I think it's like a couple months old now, but everything in terms of the definition, how the program works, everything like that has basically stayed completely exactly the same. The only difference is that every single time I say the number 20, just assume that it's a longer number, just because it was extended by a longer number after they approved the third, which is a good thing, because now that they did extend it, it means that it's actually even better than everything that's going to be mentioned inside of that video. But one of the things that was kind of mentioned inside of the FedEd/the EB program is the fact that because the FedEd/EB doesn't go on in every single state. It goes on in most states, so that's the really great news. But because it's a state-related program as opposed to a federal program, it means that the FedEd/the EB extension for unemployment is going to vary across all of the different states. So in other words, it's very possible that New York has their own thing, California has their own thing. There are states that are doing something similar, like I believe both California and New York are doing, some kind of 20-week extension. So they're really similar. But the general idea is that there will be a little bit more variety. And one of the biggest differences between all of these states is that the FedEd/EB program is supposed to go on until either the number of weeks that your state is doing the program for either goes away, or until the unemployment rate within your state falls below a certain threshold. Because some of you guys, and again, it's explained inside of that video, every single state kind of has a specific target or a statistic that they kind of use as a trigger system. When the unemployment rate falls below that particular number, that is when the Fed Ed / the EB is going to end. Now, there is a little bit of a solution, so if that ends up happening, we're going to talk a little bit about that, but that's really what they're kind of referring to, because some people were kind of wondering about that the general idea is that there are 33 states that are currently experiencing a massive drop within their unemployment rate, which kind of goes, I guess it's a good or not so good thing depending on how you look at the situation. But because there are certain states right now that are experiencing a massive drop in their unemployment rate, some of them may actually now very, very much hit that specific trigger number, which is basically the number that when the unemployment rate hits that particular target, that is when the unemployment program, specifically the Fed Ed / the EB, will be ending for the people that are on that specific program. Now, this map right here that I recently found, and it's also inside of the article, should hopefully highlight which states may potentially be going through this kind of delay. Now, as it kind of goes on, it's very possible that there are some states that may end up being added and some states that actually may end up being taken out. Because the reason, again, keep in mind, is that because everything kind of depends on the specific unemployment rate within your state, that's kind of the reason why it'll really, really fluctuate. Some states, you're actually still relatively pretty far from the trigger system, because in some states the unemployment rate is still really, really high, but in other states it's starting to hit that line really, really soon, or it's certainly on the target to, and that's what this is really about. And again, this doesn't mean that if your state is highlighted that this is the reason why you may be going through a delay, but it does mean that it could be the reason, because again, there could be many, many reasons, and this really just talks about one of the possible reasons. It is also very, very possible that even if you are not on the Fed Ed or the EB program, that if you are currently going through delays, it's very possible that maybe it's because they're trying to make the adjustments to so many different programs right now that your state may be going through a delay, partially actually because of that reason. But it's also because this program is actually really, really tied to a lot of the unemployment rates. That's also, now maybe this will make a little bit more sense why every single week or so we try to always share the unemployment numbers, which actually reminds me now that this morning the unemployment numbers actually recently just came out. So to just share them really, really quickly, because again, some people were kind of always wondering about it, and maybe this video now kind of shares why it's actually particularly important, because, you know, like sometimes I feel like people are kind of just like, okay, you know, I just want my unemployment numbers. Why does this really matter? But it does matter now for this very, very reason. But the numbers in the last recent week, I believe, is that about 494,000 people filed for traditional unemployment, and then about 101,000 people, I believe, filed for PUA unemployment. So in total, we now see about 600,000 people filing for unemployment every single week. And actually, this is now a massive drop, because if you guys remember from basically like around the beginning of this year, we were on like a streak for several months where they were literally around like 1 million people filing for unemployment every single week. So the fact that we are now reaching record lows in ratio to where we were before or since the start of the pandemic, it does mean now that the numbers are going down. So, and that's kind of why we share why it's particularly important, is because sometimes if they do, or in this case for the Fed and EB program, since there is some kind of trigger system, this is going to potentially impact what the unemployment rates become and a lot of the future programs that we can potentially get for the unemployment, both the ones that we are currently thankfully on right now, but even future unemployment programs. But the overall idea pretty much is that if you end up sometime in the future, or maybe you actually might have even already experienced it, where suddenly your unemployment rate just suddenly ends all of a sudden, then this is potentially one of, it doesn't mean that this is the reason. I mean, because there's a lot of reasons why your unemployment might have ran into some kind of delay or even a pause of some kind, but it does just mean that this is potentially one of the reasons it might be happening, or one of the things that could potentially go on. on. Now, if you do end up facing this specific situation, which is particularly true if you are someone that was or currently is on the FedEd / the EB program, the really relatively great news is that because thanks to the third stimulus package that they've now extended the PUC program in essentially all of the other unemployment programs until essentially the beginning of September, the great news is that even if that does end up happening, say for example your state does end up ending the FedEd or the EB program, then the great news is likely they're probably just going to roll you back on into the PUC program, so you guys can pretty much continue your unemployment as if it's been happening basically for the last several weeks. The only really important thing to notice is that it's very possible that if it does actually end up ending, you might experience some kind of gap in your particular state, especially if your state is just simply sometimes slow with the way things work. You might experience some kind of gap to physically roll over to the new unemployment program, but then that's probably much more of a logistics / a speed related reason in your specific state. But the great news is at least you know it exists, so at least it's there. But that's pretty much what I just really wanted to share in today's update, so hopefully you guys found that relatively insightful and it kind of clarified one of the things. If you guys did, maybe consider smashing the like button. If you guys haven't done so, consider subscribing if you guys want to for similar videos like this and also other updates if something comes up. And as always, feel free to comment any questions, thoughts about honestly just really anything at all. Happy start to the brand new month. Crazy, we are now in the brand new month of May. But with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Stay safe, stay well, and hope to see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much again.